Welcome everybody from the Sparx Systems YouTube channel. My name's Scott and it's great to have you here with us today. As usual, we're continuing on looking at the urban parking system repository that we're building up in Enterprise Architect. I'm joined today by Stephen Maguire, who today I understand we're going to talk about some business rules, and I know lots of businesses out there that I deal with that need and use rules every single day. So nice to have you here, Stephen. Can you tell us a little bit about business rules in BPMN and in Enterprise Architect?
Thanks for the introduction, Scott. Always glad to be here. Yes, today we are going to be discussing a business rules model. So let's get a dive into this because, as you say, many organizations need to be modeling business rules and understanding how the rules apply to their particular organization and its operations. So as always, let's start with our perspective. Earlier today, I've been doing some work with dynamic charts. So that's the perspective I have currently set. And remember, I can always change that perspective. So using the drop down to get perspective sets, I'm going to look in here and I'm going to look into the requirements perspective set, and I'm going to look at the business rule model. So we click on that and the tool does its magic and loads the sets the focus and loads the right information for business rule models. We have an example or starter model here that's available through the builder page, and that's a very useful thing for many novices or people coming to this part of the talk that they don't know. But as always, Scott, I like to do things from first principles. So let's close this model, close this page, and let's get started ourselves. So the perspective set gave us the indication of where this possibly could go in the project browser. So I'm going to put it under the requirements model. And you can see here I've got a lot of existing requirements already. So what I'm going to do is do a refactor of the repository on our way. And that's an important thing for people to understand. You can't set the project browser up exactly as you want it when you start. You can make a good crack at it, but as you go along, there's refactoring to do. So what I'm going to do is create another package here, and I'm going to call it functional requirements.
So can I ask a silly question? What do you mean by refactor?
I simply mean change the packages around, Scott. Like, you know, you've got a bunch of packages there and they're organized in a particular way, and you can add more packages, drag elements into other packages, and just create a structure much the same as you would do in your favorite, file explorer tool. So, you set up some packages or some folders there, and then you realize that you need some new folders or you need to restructure because some new information has come to hand. And the refactoring just means, creating some new folders and, placing things into those folders. So
if you move an element into a different folder, does that break the links at all, or does it still appear on the diagram?
No.
Good.
Yeah, Enterprise Architect takes care of all of that for you, Scott, under the hood. So nothing gets broken, nothing gets changed. The semantics of the models, the structure of the models are all exactly the same. It's just a packaging thing. It's like you're putting things into a different container or box. Let's just do that and assure that that's true. We're going to move all those up into the functional requirements. Let's go in now and have a look at our model here, and you can see nothing's broken there. And have a look at another diagram there. Nothing's broken there. So we're good to start. So let's now create a business rules model. So let's do that by creating a new package. And first, what we'll do though is we'll create a diagram first in this case, which is a different thing that we've done before. Let's go to business rules model and let's call it parking rules. Let's do that and create the diagram. Now, the reason why I did that was because let's go rules model there. The reason why I did that is because there are available from the toolbox page. You can see that Enterprise Architect has set that up for us. I'm just going to see whether I've got the right rule flow model. Actually chose the wrong diagram there. It's an easy thing to do. So let's show what we can do with that, and let's go into the design ribbon and the diagram panel and the options there and say, let's change type. So let's choose a rule model. So that little mistake.
That's
Scott,
easy to do. Easy to fix.
Yeah, and it just shows some of the power of the tool to be able to, rejig things when you've, done the wrong thing at a point. So there we have that. Now it's the model. Now the business rules model there, I can drag that into the project browser and click on that. And I'm going to call it parking rules. And I'm now going to drag, and you can see that's created another diagram. So I'm going to just delete that second diagram for a minute, and we'll start with this one here. So we've got our business rules model there, and what we want to do is create some packages for particular aspects of what we're doing here. So let's have a look at first at occupancy rules. So let's look at that, and what we're going to do is create a business rules package for a set of rules. So as always, Scott, with a lot of things in this tool, and I guess modeling in general, breaking things down into hierarchies is an important thing, or grouping things together that are logically similar. So we'll drop that in there, and we'll call it occupancy rules. So newcomers might think that you just group everything under a single package called business rules, but you'll find as you go along that something like this urban parking system, or the kind of initiatives that clients have themselves, will mean that there are going to be quite a few business rules, and grouping them together will be a sensible thing to do. So let's do that. We've got our occupancy rules there, and let's drag that occupancy rules, open that occupancy rules diagram there, and now parking rules. Let's drag this guy onto the diagram. Now we get a little menu here that says we've got a number of options about how we put this package onto the diagram, but I actually just want a package element like that. So let's do that.
So that little infinity symbol, does that mean that you can click into it and drill down?
Yeah, that's right. You can click into that and drill down. We're not going to be looking at that today, but we will have a look at that. But that's exactly right. So I have that there, and now I want to create some things inside that package. The first thing I want to do now is actually go to this diagram and look at what I've got, options I've got in terms of the compartments. So I don't want to show the package contents, so I'm going to turn that off. So lots of options here, Scott, to display things in the diagram, but I'm going to turn that off, package contents, and I'm going to drag a new business rule onto the diagram, and then that's going to be the start of our work here. So kind of business rules have generally got kind of numeric information about them, things that are limiting, what someone can do. But let's put a business rule in there, and let's drop it inside the package there, and we'll give it a name that reserve parking spaces cannot exceed 30% of the total parking capacity, right? So remember, Scott, that if you remember the way that I like to work with models is I like to put in some information about that, some notes that explain exactly what that's about, because you can kind of glean a little bit what that might be about, but what's the rationale? What's the reasons for that? And so we can put some things into the notes here that explain what that business rule is about. It says balances regular and premium parking options, maintains availability for casual users, optimizes revenue mix. So quite a few things going on there. And again, this is the beginning of this model. You might, if you wanted to, actually write those rationales out into other elements and then be able to drill down on those. But for the moment, we're going to put them in like that. The other thing is that we might want to do is another business rule that we might want to deal with is accessibility, which is an important aspect of the way that councils and organisations must treat people equally. So let's put that in there, and we'll say that handicap accessible spaces must maintain a minimum 5%. So let's use our layout ribbon and So we select the layout ribbon, the alignment panel. Let's make both of these the same size. And in fact, now I'm just using the control keys and I'm just making them, slightly bigger and changing the height of them. So with that done, I'm going to put one more in and then we'll have a look at how we connect this to a rule task. So let's drop one more business rule onto the diagram. Again, we can just use our magic layout to get that lined, and then we can select this element and just make a couple of adjustments to the size of this. And there we go. We're going to drop a rule task on now. And so the rule task is a statement, I guess, of what needs to be done by the system to deal with these particular business rules. So we're going to give it a name and we'll call it manage space allocation, space in there. And again, Scott, let's look at putting some general notes in here about this because we want to be able to understand, what's happening. So real-time tracking prevents overselling. So we don't want to be selling spaces like the council will typically have, parking towers with multiple levels on them. So that space allocation is going to be in those kind of facilities. Automated space type management ensures compliance. Dynamic allocation supports varying demand patterns. So lots of things going on that start to tell a story, to create a narrative about, what's going to go on and how these business rules are going to be implemented and why they're important. We can now just simply connect these business rules up to the task, and I'll just join them up and have it. And we can set these into one of my favorite line styles, Scott, is the orthogonal rounded. It just gives a sort of softness to the model, and I can just put that in like that, and I can then apply very conveniently apply the line style to connect it to the same type. So with that done, now I can just move that around a little bit. Lots of flexibility there, and you can see that I've got that all kind of neatly done. That's the kind of the most important things, or the set of things that we need to do. We're going to create a number of other sets of rules because we've got not only occupancy rules, but we've got rate calculation rules and security rules, payment processing rules, lots of things. So I'm going to get you to perform some of your time travel magic, Scott, and I'll finish this diagram off and we'll see you back in just a few seconds.
Excellent. Welcome back. And I've performed a little bit of editing magic, and now we have our completed business rules diagram. I can see a few different packages there with some rules. I can see some different rule tasks. So perhaps you could explain a little bit about what's going on and how it relates to our urban parking system.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, we've completed a large segment of the rules, but of course there may be a lot of other rules to do with all sorts of other aspects of the urban parking system. So what I wanted to do is to show you a bit of a layout that we can put these packages onto the diagram and include the business rules inside those packages, so it's very obvious how they're contained. We can see that the packages themselves have notes that describe what they're doing. These rules govern all financial transactions with parking. The security rules encompass all aspects of facility safety and security monitoring. Very topical and important part in facility management. We've got occupancy rules that we looked at, manage the physical utilisation of parking facilities, rate calculation rules. These set of rules define the pricing structure and rate variations. So, very useful things. And each one of these elements in here, both all of the business rules themselves have got rationales or explanations as to what's going on. I sometimes like, Scott, to be able to, like in this case, I've used bullet points rather than descriptions. And the sort of modelling wisdom behind that, if you like, is the fact that it's much easier to then, if you want to, create these elements it will create these descriptions as elements. So I can pick out each one of those dot points and make an element out of it, and then sort of drill down into the system. But for the moment, when I'm at this sort of requirements or analysis phase, it's a good thing just to be putting them down into dot points. And then as you discover that you want to go down in more detail, as you inevitably will, because how do you ensure operational costs are covered for even brief stays? And this rule is saying, okay, every parking session requires a minimum payment of $2 regardless of the duration, prevents abuse of short-term parking. So that's going to link up to policies, simplifies accounting by establishing a base transaction amount. All of those things are going to possibly inform or be able to be tied back to development work. And that's the beauty of it, Scott. In this world of agile development, and everyone's hungry for things to be completed quickly, and the world is moving very fast. With this kind of work, you don't need to wait until the analysis and all of the definitions are already completed. Developers can start work on things. They can develop things, understand them, analyze them, and then the linkages can be drawn between these elements and the higher ones, and then some reconciliation takes place to make sure that everything is lining up. But you don't need to stop work from progressing. And of course, the rule tasks have all got rationales as well. So process payment, centralized payment handling ensures consistent application of rules. Automated re-entry, retry logic reduces manual intervention. Real-time monitoring enables quick response to payment issues. So that's the business rules model. I think it's a fantastically useful model, and it, like I said, it starts to make the connection between the business world and the technology world. So that those connectors that are there connecting up the business rules, which are owned by the business people, they're not part of the technology world. This is the business that's driving these things, and it's connecting then to this process payment, which is this rule task. So what does the system need to do? How is it going to actually implement these rules? So a great model, Scott, and I encourage people to get busy and try some modeling of their own.
I can see how many businesses would be able to use this to put some business rules in place. So thank you very much. As always, I encourage our audience to like, comment, and subscribe our videos. We love your feedback, and it's great to hear from you. And I encourage everyone to get into Enterprise Architect and try some for yourself, create your own business rules, and perhaps have a look at some of the model patterns that exist if you're finding a way that you would like to get started. As always, if you have any questions for Stephen, you can reach out via the credentials on LinkedIn or his website listed below. Thank you once again for showing us a great business rules diagram in Enterprise Architect. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Scott. Always a pleasure to be here. And remember, we've just scratched the surface of the tool's potential and productivity gains.